a curious mind is a terrible curse. That's the way it's always been for me. Some of my earliest memories are of secretly listening to my dad swapping ghost stories with his buddies while I sat wrapped in the room next door. I can't help it. I have a yearning to know the great unknown. In some macabre way, I've always wanted to experience something paranormal for myself, just so I can know the truth. Over time, I never did encounter anything that reason and logic could not explain. The adult world was ultimately very rational. The childhood wonder and possibilities dissolves quickly into the reality of serious jobs and mortgages. But all of that changed recently. The house I grew up in was a small wooden building in the middle of suburbia. It was, without question, the oldest house in that street, which was how we could afford to live there. I had always wondered if maybe it was haunted. Anything that old must have some dark history to it. But it was always uneventful. There was some constant scratching noises above my bedroom at night, but that turned out to just be pigeons roosting in the ceiling. Once, when I was 10, I was playing alone on the floor of my bedroom. My heart suddenly froze when I could distinctly hear the sound of snoring coming from my bed. I could hear the sound growing louder and louder. I stared at my bed, but I saw nothing and no one there. Mustering what little courage I had, I yelled out, "Hello? Who is there?" All I got back was a loud, horrible snore. I grabbed an umbrella and I gingerly walked towards my bed, my heart pounding furiously. There wasn't anything moving as I poked my blanket and pillow. It was then I noticed the window above the bed was slightly open. The moment I closed it, the snoring stopped. It had been nothing more than the wind, whispering through the cracks. Another experience was the nightly terrors that would strike me in my sleep. I would often awake to the sensation of my blanket being ripped away and my body held down, while some dark, angry entity strangled my throat so hard that the bed would rattle. The first time, I thought it was just a vivid but terrible nightmare. But when it happened again and again, night after night, I started to panic. Whatever it was relentless. As I seemed to always survive each attack though, I thought I was just going crazy. Thankfully, I learned about sleep paralysis a few months later. Changing my sleeping patterns stopped it from happening again. So, everything paranormal that I've ever experienced was ultimately very rational. Like the famous poster in Fox Mulder's office, I want to believe, but ultimately found the evidence lacking. That said, I can find no explanation for what's happened to me recently. I had decided to take a break, and I spent a few weeks backpacking in Vietnam. Starting from Ho Chi Minh City, we took a winding journey northwards through the muddy roads along the coast. It was miles and miles of mostly untouched wilderness, broken up by the occasional village and some of the most pristine beaches in the world. It was in one particular stretch that we spent a full day soaking in the sun and surf. The worries of the world 1,000 miles away. As day made way to twilight, we feasted on some amazing seafood that we had caught earlier. Sleeping under an open sky, it's an amazing experience, especially far away from the polluting lights of civilization. It was to this glorious view of the heavens that I awoke around 3 a.m., feeling the somewhat less glorious call of nature urging me to the nearest toilet. It was a humid night, with the sound of insects chirping their nightly symphony. Groggily, I made my way through the path to the basic facility set up for campers. It was set in a clearing, with male toilets lined along one side of a 30-foot wide crude concrete floor, facing another row of female toilets. Between the rows in the center was a waiting area, with a makeshift lamp hanging above to light the yard. As I approached, I noticed an old man standing under the lamp. His back was towards me. All I could see was his scraggly long white hair. It reached past his shoulders, and a thin, old bony body jutting up from his thin clothing rags. Slightly freaked out. I wasn't expecting anyone to be around this time of night. I coughed politely to make him aware of my approach. I didn't want an old man's heart attack from fright weighing on my conscience. He was probably a local villager waiting on his wife, since electricity and running water was scarce in the scattered collection of homes in the area. He didn't seem to notice me, so I let him be, and I made my way to the nearest mail stall. As I closed the door, I could still see him in my line of sight. Though I was now 90 degrees from where I first saw him, he still had his back to me again. It was definitely odd, but certainly far from threatening. Besides, I had more urgent pressing matters, particularly against my bowels. The toilet was barely more than a hole in the floor, with a flimsy, undersized door that was all that stood between you and your dignity. The overwhelming stench of human waste filled my senses as I dropped my pants and squatted to make my own deposit. After a few moments, my thoughts lazily drifted back to the old man in the yard. There was something definitely odd, and my subconscious was screaming that something was out of place. With rapidly rising horror, my mind clicked the pieces into place. Though the old man was standing near a bright light, he didn't cast a shadow. The possibility that it may have been an optical illusion vanished when I suddenly saw his shadowless feet inches away through the gap under the toilet door. I was almost thankful I was squatting with my pants down, since I emptied my bowels simultaneously with my lungs emptying a scream through the other end. I jumped up and I pulled my pants back up as I backed up against the back wall. From my now standing position, I had lost sight of what was under the door. With no shadow, I could not tell if it was still waiting there. My mind furiously ran through what scarce options I had. I realized I didn't have much of a choice but to escape this stall. This flimsy door would provide no protection for me, and there was certainly nothing left of my dignity. If I was to die, I decided it wouldn't be in this literal shithole. I peeked under the door, but I couldn't see anything on the other side. Deciding it was now or never, I kicked open the door to nothing but an empty courtyard. I rushed out, but I could see no sign of the old man. Nothing but the incessant sound of crickets. It was then I made the fatal mistake of looking at the stall that I had just escaped from. He was there. That dreaded, white-haired and bony body, standing right where I was mere seconds ago. For the second time that night, I was thankful, as I had nothing left to brown my pants as I let out another scream. Now running on pure instinct, I sprinted back to the beach, as if I were being chased by demons. For all I knew, I actually was. Making it back to the camp, I spent the next few hours wide awake, crouching and staring at the trail. I was ready to wake everyone at a mere sight of the old man. When morning finally broke, my campmates lazily woke, wondering why I was looking like death itself. I was too afraid to tell them what I saw, and simply explained that I was struck with insomnia that night. Nothing as eventful as that happened for the remainder of the trip, but I had to share my experience with our local tour guide on the last day. I had to know the truth. When I finished my story, he only looked gravely at me and asked just one question. Did you see its face? He explained that in Vietnam, lonely ghosts will often haunt sites where travelers can be found. Those who see their face are doomed to a grisly, gruesome death in the near future. It's been almost 2 months since that fateful encounter. To this day, I still have no idea if I really saw its face. It's a blur that still haunts me, and I'm not sure I want to know. Maybe there are some things in life that are better left unknown. I think I'm already cursed enough.